Welcome back to the Moor Insights and Strategy Data Center Podcast. I'm Patrick Moorhead with the entire Moor Insights and Strategy crew here related to data center. We've got Matt, Will, Paul. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy 2024.
Woo! 2024. Happy New Year.
Gosh. Yeah. We're going to be talking about a lot here on today's show. But hey, if it's your first time here, we're talking data center, compute, cloud, security, storage, networking, operations, data management, AI, quantum, and more. I know that's a mouthful, but something tells me, guys, that we are going to continue to talk about AI. And I think the trend, it's funny. I tried to, how do you encapsulate last year's 2023 year of AI? I call it the year of GPUs.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at the only mega beneficiary from this was NVIDIA, and you got a little, I'll call it sympathetic, pull for AMD, Broadcom, Marvell. So really the picks and the shovels of the industry.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft's market cap went up about $500 billion. Google's went down. Companies like IBM are breaking out numbers, which is great. Mm-hmm. You have Dell that talks about $1 billion backlog on one system, and you've got folks like Cisco and et cetera. But anyways, I'm looking forward to a year. I'm looking forward to a year of actual implementation. Okay. Mm-hmm. We got a good show for you today. By the way, we might talk about publicly traded companies, but don't take any of this as investment advice. Seek out a professional. If you saw my portfolio, you would understand why you never want to listen to me. Actually, I don't personally trade in any company that I cover. So that's kind of a joke. No, it's really a joke. My portfolio really sucked last year. So, but I don't trade on anybody we cover. But hey, let's dive in. We got a good show for you today. We're talking about AWS, and has it commoditized the CPU with Graviton 4? We're going to talk about HPE's intention to acquire Juniper, AI and quantum, no lithium ion. Hey, does that rhyme? That must be Paul. And we're talking about Nutanix and Intel. They want your business critical apps. Does that make any sense here? We're going to talk about another acquisition, Cisco going after, again, smaller acquisition size than Juniper, but Isovalent. Yeah. You had me multi-cloud, by the way. Mm-hmm. And we're going to end this with AI. Don't worry, be healthy. That's got to be another one of Paul's too, because he's the only one that seems to have a creative bone in his body on this show. So anyways, let's dive in here. Matt, I'm going to call your number.
All right.
Guests, dive in as required. AWS, have they commoditized it or decommoditized the CPU?
So two things before I start. First, I've always thought of Paul as the Barry Manilow of our team, with his creative jingles. Hats off to you. And second, Pat, you called it out before we started recording how big my head was relative to everyone else's. I cannot stop looking now.
I mean, you just got, big head, big brain. How else, or, what kind of melon do you need to put that big brain inside of?
Trust me, there's not a lot there. I just use a lot of the capacity.
Yeah. And by the way, for the sake of everybody, before you turn me into HR, Matt, I want to be very clear that it had everything to do with the camera perspective, as opposed to Matt actually having a big
large
head.
noggin. Yeah. Strangely, I have kind of a small head, strangely enough, but I don't think that's one of the topics. I don't want to spend too much time.
It's okay. Now the entire audience is focused on the head.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Good luck, buddy.
All right. So here's the deal with my my headline here. So 2023 was interesting. Obviously AMD and Intel have done quite well with the cloud providers. But in 2023, we saw Microsoft come out with its Cobalt CPU, as well as Maya, its AI acceleration silicon. And we saw AWS come out with Graviton 4. which, they've been doing it for a while. So you're like, okay. But what was interesting in there is whereas Microsoft and AWS and Google with Ampere have really gone after the low-hanging fruit with ARM, that one single socket kind of cloud-native workload. They've really attacked that space with ARM, which has put a little bit of a dent into the kind of the merchant silicon providers. With Graviton 4, AWS did things a little bit different. Number one, they took full advantage of ARM v2, that high-end CPU architecture, or IP, I should say, and they built out a two-socket solution based on that. So what they've done is, in being AWS and seeing what they did with the original Graviton, I have no doubt they're going to aggressively go after and deploy dual socket Graviton 4 wherever they can.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just cloud native. It's virtualized workloads. It's database workloads. It's analytics workloads. If you believe some of the hype, it's going to be some implementations of AI as well. So this is pushing that dual socket ARM further and further up the stack, if you will, and really starting to reach into where Intel and AMD have really kind of made a lot of revenue and a lot of margin. So the question that I have, and it's really, I wanted to tee this up for discussion, is, and by the way, I have to think Microsoft will follow suit once they see what it delivers in terms of cost savings to AWS, and Google's certainly going to follow suit given their history of silicon development. What does this mean? Is the CPU, commoditized? And by the way, does it matter, given that we see, specialized silicon for AI, seeing that we see specialized silicon for analytics, different types of accelerators, and seeing where AMD and Intel are going in their roadmaps? Does a commoditized CPU even matter at this point? I'm kind of curious as to what y'all think about this.
I mean, I'm usually shy. Let me jump in here.
Especially when it comes to silicon, Pat, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we look at the basic Webster dictionary definition of commodity, I mean, it's up there with coffee, tin, and things that can be used that are interchangeable. By the way, I don't like to drink tin or use coffee to, make beer cans, but it's interchangeable between something else. My take is that what AWS did is they decommoditized it, in that they found a way to either make more money, make more profit, or they can offer low cost, and they can offer premium on this. And I know you're specifically talking about the CPU versus something else, but I feel like they decommoditized it in what they were able to do. And just to be factual, Azure, they already announced an ARM-based design based on Neoverse 2. I think the differentiator there was integrated networking, but it was pretty much an off-the-shelf ARM design. And I agree with you, Matt. We're going to see this. We're going to see this inside of Google Cloud very soon. What do y'all think? Anybody else?
I don't really have much to add, other than Pat. You're usually spot on with your analysis of this sort of stuff. So.
Only when I'm not.
Only when I'm not. Let me ask you this, Pat.
You're 60% right all the time, right?
Do you think this has a major impact on AMD and Intel? I mean, if you think about the revenue hit, potential revenue hits, right, and the reinvestment that these companies can make back into product line, new investments, so on and so forth. Do you see this as any kind of real challenge to what the merchant silicons, as you like to call them, what they're doing?
Absolutely. And one little blurb that came out at the very end of AWS reInvent was that Amazon had shipped 2 million Gravitons, and while that doesn't completely destroy the server market, it's 2 million units at an AUP of $500, I'm guessing, at that. each that Intel and AMD didn't have, right? And I see this as enterprises get more comfortable with ARM, and when you build a modern app, it's really a no-brainer in the ability to do that. And as you see Oracle and SAP jumping on, it's removing those objections big time. So, yeah, it's gonna leave a mark, and until I think AMD is showing performance dominance right now, but if and when Intel catches up on the performance per watt side, it will make sense. One thing to factor in, let's just even say they were the same performance, or even if homegrown were a little bit less performance, what you're removing is the 100% gross margin from both AMD and Intel that the customer doesn't have to take. Yeah. And if they have the scale, if you're going through TSMC, you're getting a decent price out of them, and you have a big enough design team to do it, then economically it's almost a no-brainer.
Yeah. I do like that Intel and AMD continue to drive kind of differentiation. And a good example is what Intel's done with its acceleration engines, right? Kind of build in these workload specific accelerators into the silicon to drive differentiation and assure that there's a relevance within these modern workloads, instead of just more cores, more memory, right? It's a build-in differentiated performance. I think that's gonna drive better adoption than simply trying to match core for core for core. I think at some point talk about a sum zero game. I mean, nobody wins in that, right?
Yeah, and I urge you to check out the show notes and look at Matt's research note on this. You also hit on AI accelerators too, which, by the way, that's a done deal. Right now, all three vendors have an inference and a training solution that's homegrown.
Yep.
And that's why now none of them have a GPU, which is why NVIDIA and AMD are so popular. And I think in 2025 we'll see a new product out of Intel that's going to be more of an AI GPU. They have a very capable high performance computing GPU based design. Yeah. But they do not have one for data center AI. Yeah. So, hey, good conversation on this. Let's move into the next topic. HP this week brought out an announcement, says that they were going to buy Juniper. Will, what are your thoughts?
I mean, this is like, a thought-provoking head scratcher, of an announcement, right? Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, to quote a line from one of my favorite movies, Ghostbusters. But yeah, this was a surprise. It started leaking on Monday. I just happened to be sitting on the couch and started just getting hit up by lots of people. The rumors around HPE possibly acquiring Juniper Networks. And sure enough, Pat, you and I were pre-briefed by Antonio and Rami, the CEO of Juniper Networks, prior to the more general analyst discussions on this subject. And, when I first sort of started hearing the rumors, it made me think, oh, okay, this gives HPE a stronger AI anchor. Certainly with Aruba. Aruba's been focused on AI ops for quite some time, but, given the gold rush around artificial intelligence, this potentially gives HPE that anchor that they need. And something that I thought of that not many of my other, colleagues in the industry were speaking about were some of the potential synergies that Juniper could bring to HPE in reinvigorating HPE's telecom business. They've acquired Athonet. They're making a clear run at service provider. They've had a business in place for quite some time. Dell has matured its offering. And so my thought is, could Juniper also be a defensive move? And as you recall, Pat, I asked Antonio this question on our call, and he did admit, yeah, we do believe that Juniper brings certain things like RAN intelligent controller and a service provider footprint that could be well leveraged by HPE. But at the end of the day, the overlap within the networking portfolios between Juniper in HPE Aruba networking, that's a head scratcher. That's going to require a lot of roadmap rationalization. There are going to be some products that are going to be sunsetted. And, at the end of the day, there was a discussion with Antonio about some re-engineering effort, leveraging the MIST engine, using that MIST engine in Green Lake and other places within the HPE portfolio. But let me mention this. In 2019, Juniper acquired MIST for just a little bit north of $400 million. This transaction is valued at $14 billion and brings with it a lot of debt. So, hey, listen, there's some pros and cons here, but it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, HPE had some strategic directions it could have gone and invested, right? It decided to invest in networking, and the AI, it looks like with MIST, is a big part of that. And then the other strategic decision could have been to invest more in compute, right? Maybe buy a Grok, possibly, who, HPE and Grok are both in 3-letter acronym U.S. agencies. And, another one could have been to make a major investment in VAST on the storage side. So, and what they did is they chose something that had given them amazing return before, which was when they bought Aruba.
Yeah.
If you look at the growth of HPE in the last 3 quarters, it's all Aruba.
It
right?
is. Yeah.
50% growth in networking. So you might be there like, we know how to buy a company to do networking and make a lot of money on it and become more relevant with customers. The 800-pound gorilla across every one of these environments in networking, whether it is data center core, leaf, spine, on the edge, in the carriers, is Cisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has upwards of, is it 40-50% share across that? I don't know this for certain.
Pretty close, yeah.
So the question is, can you put up enough technology to become relevant where you're starting to displace some Cisco business at a bigger clip? The core switch, I think 95% market share in the West is Cisco, right? How do you touch that? I don't think there was anything bought that can touch that. I do see MIST for AI management, cross cloud, cross network. I see the possibility there.
Yeah.
I also see, and this was floated as well, which is all the networking that goes between AI clusters, right? You've got a battle right now between low latency Ethernet and with very expensive technologies that do this today. Even NVIDIA is trying to go in and own this spot. And by the way, NVIDIA, a company like Marvell sells to other people like Juniper, so I could see some connectivity there. I would say the only head scratcher for me is really understanding what is incremental versus what's overlap. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I went in thinking this was pure incremental. That was my very first hot take. And then the call, it was like, no, we do some things that are the same thing, right? Yeah. Whether it's Aruba Central or MIST, things like that. How's that going to go over with regulators? Maybe it's so small as a concentration that it doesn't matter compared to Cisco, but also if you have overlap, is it worth the money? Above my pay grade in terms of valuation, I'll let other people do that. On the financials, I do like that in day one, it's profitable.
It's accretive. Yeah, it's accretive, right? And then Antonio spoke to $450 million in synergies over a 3-year period after the close. And I will mention, the scale of Juniper brings a top line revenue of about $5 billion. And you could peg Aruba. They don't just discreetly break it out, but Aruba's probably sitting at about $4 billion. So it makes it a $9 billion combined enterprise top line revenue. I mean, compare that to Cisco, right? So this deal, I'm not going to prognosticate whether it gets approved or not. It likely gets approved, but Pat, to your point, rationalizing those roadmaps among the enterprise, networking portfolio is going to be the biggest challenge. And I mean, you and I are former Compaq employees. I was actually at Compaq when HP acquired Compaq. That was like 22 years ago. I'm hoping things have changed, but that integration didn't go as smoothly as maybe it should have. And I can say that because I actually lived through it. But, acquisitions of this size are pretty difficult to consume.
Good stuff, folks.
Pat, I want to echo something you kind of hit on indirectly, and that is I struggled a little bit with kind of understanding what HPE's strategic intent is. To what you said, they could have taken a number of directions, and they went down this networking path. I would have thought if they had some money they wanted to spend, they would have gone down the more kind of maybe where I think there's maybe richer opportunity, and that is down the compute side. Richer is maybe not the right word, but I see some of the either a Avast or even like a Nutanix where you kind of expand your true cloud capabilities. I mean, true like on-prem to off-prem across cloud capabilities. I really kind of would have thought they would have gone down this path. I worked for a company that Juniper acquired some time ago, and I've heard nothing but great things about the Juniper organization. So it's nothing against the company or their technology. I just, given where they've gone with GreenLake, I would have expected them to kind of index a little bit more on things I thought would have had more immediate impact on kind of, pushing or driving GreenLake business. But
the interesting thing is Mist as a service is all going to be GreenLake, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. It's not increasing like the compute or storage inside of GreenLake, but HPE has rolled in networking as a service in there already.
Yeah.
And I think what this does is, adds the Mist layer to it. But again, great analysis, folks. There's always puts and takes in these things. And this one is not crystal clear, right? They all aren't crystal clear, which, by the way, if it were always crystal clear, they wouldn't need analysts.
That's right.
And I'll just add, Pat, that I published a research note this week. I was one of the first analysts on the planet to do that. So if our viewers are interested, that's posted to the Moor Insights and Strategy website.
No, I appreciate that plug. Come and get it. All right, Paul, you're up, baby. We're moving to the next topic here, AI and quantum. No lie on.
No, it's AI and quantum. I'm not lying.
Exactly. That's it. Gosh, I even blew the bunny on that.
Best, okay. Paul continues to have the best headlines. We need to up our game, gentlemen.
So, Paul, what is this about? I mean, we know lithium-ion batteries. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, everybody's after a better lithium-ion battery. Microsoft is going at it using AI. They partnered with Pacific Northwest National Labs to develop a better material. And basically what they did was they screened 32 million candidate materials to find a better battery. And there was a bunch of steps involving AI and the integration of AI and cloud computing and quantum computing. And they used Azure quantum elements, and it's got all those elements in it. But the process involved basically 4 steps. They screened these 32 million potential materials with an AI model. They found 500,000 stable candidates that they could use. And then they filtered those with high performance computing, and they got 800 candidates. So then they used another program, some molecular dynamics simulations, and they narrowed those 800 down to 150. And then they came up with 18 promising candidates. And when they synthesized everything, they came up with one new material. It is a new material that reduced the amount of lithium ion that were needed for batteries. It replaced, if you look at the crystal matrix of it, they replaced a lot of lithium ion atoms with sodium, and it still provides all the connectivity and conductivity that they needed. So it looks like they've got a new material, and it looks like that this will have some impact on lithium ion batteries. Finally, we're going to get something.
Gosh, Paul, keep us keep us up to date on this one. This one is a really good, sounds like a really good application of this. Yeah. And it's kind of like the type of stuff we always expected that AI and quantum would bring, you know?
Yeah. But to go through 32 million candidates and come up with one that really is going to work, then that's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, it is. I wonder whose brain they imported into ChatGPT via Azure to be able to do that. And then I still don't admit I don't fully understand the play between AI and quantum and how they use that. But I believe there's a white paper out there on Arvix that we put in the show notes that if you want to dive into the geekery and see how they did this, more power to you.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go into this next topic. I have no idea what we're walking to this one, folks. But Nutanix and Intel launch your business critical apps. This might be kind of like a VMware reaction. Well, what's going on here?
Not necessarily. No, we could have a whole discussion on VMware, but no, this is. I just thought this was interesting, and there's really. It's not a specific announcement. It's just more of an observation I've had over the last few months. I did a research paper on this that published, right at the end of the year. But, it used to be, for those that have been around for a while, and, Pat, you've been in this industry for a bit. If you remember the early days of virtualization when it first came online or, became mainstream.
Oh, I remember that. It was going to destroy the server market. Right?
Wasn't it?
Remember that?
Yeah.
Volumes were going to go down, and we no longer, my gosh, we used to have a special box for every application, and now we can just run every application on a box and virtualize the app. And it was going to be the death of the x86 server market. I remember it.
We're still waiting. We're still waiting.
No, I know, like the volumes tripled. So. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But, it's interesting because as it came on and this threat, this, grave threat to the server market emerged, one of the things that always held true for bare metal was those performance and performant applications that you needed to squeeze every bit of CPU cycle out of were sacred cows, right? You could not throw those in virtualized environments because there was a 10% or so performance hit, and that had material impact on your business, right? And that kind of carried forward considerably. Database was always a no-fly zone, if you will, for virtualization for many years. As virtualization technology kind of matured, and that virtualization tax became reduced on the CPU. It started opening the aperture a little bit more, but then along came HCI, and it had its own set of challenges around capacity, linear scaling, and that same performance tax. And so I was commissioned recently to kind of look at what's been going on. And as I looked at what Nutanix has done with its cloud platform and Intel obviously with Xeon and its acceleration engines, there really is no sacred cow anymore. They're actually pushing even AI in these HCI environments as being good candidates for control under these control planes. So it was an observation that this is more of for IT folks that are watching, that have this mindset of HCI performed a function, but it kind of was put in a box because of performance limitations, because of scale limitations, because of expansion limitations into the cloud and across clouds. you really need to relook at what you've done with your HCI implementations, and really reconsider, what you're using that technology for and what you could use that technology for, because it really has, as you look at these new platforms that are being deployed, and it's not just Nutanix and not just Intel, but that's what I was looking at. As you look at these new platforms, there is a whole lot more capability. It's going to simplify your life, lower your cost of doing business. And by the way, you don't have to worry about keeping any applications outside of that pen anymore. So just really an observation.
Yeah, in fact, you did a market spotlight video outlining that, and you can find this in the show notes.
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. What I like is when you talk with folks that are kind of, this isn't about, when you talk with some of the folks, the techies that are at these companies, whether it's Intel, AMD, Nutanix, VMware, you start to realize it's not about a specific product or a specific company. It's more about what's going on with the technology. So, I would encourage people to take a look at that, because it really gets into HCI as a solution, not just Nutanix, and what's been going on in the silicon world. Talk about, kind of going back to the beginning, what's been going on in the silicon world to accelerate performance, not just Xeon or not just Gaudi or, other pieces of silicon. So that's it.
Hey, guy, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Matt.
Yep.
I'm curious. Nutanix seems to be making a bunch of noise about, VMware, and it's time to blow the bolts and kind of come over to them. What's your commentary on that, and kind of what's going on? I'm not asking you to pick winners. It's just more like first of all, what's going on, and what do enterprises need to think through here?
Yeah, Nutanix is being very opportunistic, as you would expect them to be, right? Any good competitor in a space would do that. And they started beating this drum early with the acquisition of VMware from Broadcom. If you remember, Pat, I was a big proponent of the acquisition early on, because I didn't see VMware as a kind of cash cow for Broadcom. I saw it as a strategic investment where they could grow. What Nutanix has been really kind of poking at recently is the new bundled pricing that and the new costs that VMware has put around ESX Plus and its suite, right? So there are a lot of enterprises out there that just buy virtualization from VMware. That's ESX Plus, and VMware is going down this bundled path where they're going to give you everything for a fixed amount per core. And if you are an organization that is just looking at virtualization from VMware, you really need to kind of push back on that. I know there's some give, because it's not going to be a cost-effective play for the customer if to get all the stuff they don't use and pay for stuff they don't use, their costs are going to go up. If you are a VMware shop and use it across, use a lot of their solutions, from ESX to what they're doing in networking and the kind of cloud connectivity, VCF, there's certainly a benefit to it. Everything I've read, and I know you're kind of closer to what VMware has been doing with Broadcom, but everything I've read and I've heard from customers is that for those customers that are just using ESX, VMware is being quite what's the word? Friendly, I guess I would say, in licensing, and they're working with customers to find a solution that works best for them. So, but I would, if I were an enterprise IT person, which I'm not anymore, I would look at what my utilization is of VMware across my environment, and how this bundled licensing kind of applies to what I'm doing, because I think you're going to find for a lot of customers, there's a lot of baggage there that a lot of technology that they're not going to use, that they're going to end up paying for if they just accept it at face value.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And by the way, day one of the announcement, here's what I said. Well, actually, I was pretty negative on day one. then I had a conversation with Broadcom CEO Hock Tan, and then I had a discussion with VMware CEO, and here's where I ended up, because the only place that I really had experience with Broadcom was on the semiconductor side, and they run that probably one of the, it's actually the biggest cash flow business on the entire stock exchange. Like the cash flow and how they do that is just amazing, and the way that Hock Tan acquires companies. But I had this initial notion for probably a decade that it was maybe playing dirty pool, but what it was, it was more about finding exactly where customers derive value. Make your fair amount of money off of that, which it's value-based pricing, which is like, if I'm enabling you to generate $100 million in cash flow to your business, I'm going to price my product appropriately to take part of that. If I'm not adding value to you, I might not even offer that product anymore, or I might get rid of it, or sell it off. So my second day message was, wow, this could be very interesting. This company is really good at working with their customers on where they're willing to pay. If you're in that zone, and by the way, it's very clear, I'm not going to raise prices on you. This is before the acquisition went down. I'm gonna double the investment in cross cloud capabilities. Okay. And yet channel partners, we still, of course, we need you. We can't direct sell. We learned our lesson with McAfee and the mainframe division. So my only caution would be, hey, if you're in an area where VMware isn't making any money, right, there's going to be change.
Right.
I mean, and that's just being a business person, and that's just being having a two-way dialogue. Broadcom is smart because they know that people can change VMs. It's not simple, but there are push button tools that will take you to KVM, that will take you to Microsoft, that are out there. So, they're not going to screw that up at all. And hey, cross cloud fabrics, that's my deal. And we're going to talk about that with Isovalent coming up. Makes perfect sense, and that is where the puck is going. So we'll wrap that in, right? Because we want to gain market share like a startup would, and then go from there. But anyways, thanks, Matt, for that extra piece.
No, it was fun conversation.
Move to the next one. Cisco buying cross-cloud capable Isovalent. Why don't you start, Will, and then we'll. I want to make sure Matt gets his in there.
You bet. So this sort of crept over the wire in December, and so many folks may have been, kind of chiming out for the holidays. But yeah, so what Cisco aims to do with Isovalent is to enhance its multi-cloud capabilities with respect to security and observability. And I'll be completely honest, I wasn't familiar with the company. I did learn that Cisco had become an investor initially in the company as part of their Series A funding in 2020. And the technology is actually based on open source. And so I've got my notes right here, but it's called eBPF. And it's basically an open source technology that allows software programs to program to the heart of the operating system down at the kernel level. And that provides a level of flexibility and performance and capability. But I'm sure, Pat, you're much more knowledgeable about that underlying architecture. But again, this sort of demonstrates Cisco's growth through acquisition.
Yeah, a bunch of ways that Cisco innovates, and I would say they've got the most definitive innovation strategy out there, which is build it ourselves, even invest in A round and seed rounds. That's very novel for a company this size. Everybody has their kind of their B round and C round capital offerings, but Cisco has it covered all the way from seed to be in C round. So this was an investment of their own, and this flies into what I've been harping about for a decade, which says there will be multi-cloud. Public cloud has a 15-year advantage timing wise, or not an advantage, but about a 10-year advantage because the on-prem cloud really just got real with folks like Red Hat having portable application, I'll call them application fabric cross cloud. And then you've got Cisco that has what's called the networking cloud that is actually kind of a misnomer because it's a networking and a security cloud.
Yeah.
And this flies into that and gives it the ability to on the app layer and the networking layer add some robustness to whether you're an AWS, GCP, Oracle Cloud, on-prem, sovereign cloud, really anybody with an IP address to be able to have the magical one pane of glass to be able to manage applications and networking and security no matter where they are.
Yeah, think about this, right? ByteDance, Datadog, Sky, GitHub. These are all folks that or companies that have kind of embraced Isovalent technology long before the acquisition. I am amazed at how what's the word I'm looking for? How good Cisco is at, Pat, you hit on this, at finding not even diamonds in the rough, but kind of just, those unicorns and either making an investment in them and leveraging that investment or going out and acquiring them. And they do it time and time again. And this is yet another one. And it's funny because it's a company. I always thought of Cisco as just like, they're a networking company and who cares about networking? It's just plumbing, right? And it's been my ignorant attitude for a long time, but they seem to stay 5 yards, 10 yards ahead of the industry time and time again. And this is another one of those that I think people are going to look back at it and go, man, that was a smart acquisition. Love it.
Yeah, I love that Cisco got the jump on cross cloud capabilities, by the way, in the areas that make sense, right? And you get a lot of action related to DNS, right? Infoblox is another cross cloud security and networking that goes literally across any place there's an IP, single pane of glass. VMware has it on the app layer as well. Cloudera has it on the data management layer.
Yep.
You can manage it the same. That is the future. And it is the future because we know that every company will be multi-cloud. And if you're not, you're lying or you just don't know the future. You might have a tier 1 public and a tier 2 public. What happens if you acquire a company that's on OCI? Or you want to do business in a place that needs a sovereign cloud, or you have a workload that's not spiky, that makes absolutely no sense to be running in the public cloud. You should be running it in your own data center at a third of the cost, or let's say, 40% of that cost at a Digital Realty or an Equinix or something like that. So, it's just a matter of time. And today, each of these IT, they have a special team for every one of those clouds. Okay. You have the AWS security person, the AWS apps person, the AWS ops person, the AWS networking person, the AWS security person that works on a team, just like we used to do and kind of still do, where you had the mainframe team, the mini computer team, the x86 team. It was just like, and then it's like, no, this makes no sense. So, hey, I think we've exhausted this topic.
One cloud does not fit all, right? I think that's the headline.
It doesn't, and people are just finally waking up to that. So, and by the way, all you vendors out there, if you're not cross cloud, multi cloud, you don't have a very good future. Sorry, I'm sorry.
You heard it from Pat. You heard it from Pat.
Let's finalize this. We're running just a tad long because Pat can't stop shutting up. AI, don't worry, be healthy. Oh, must be creative, must be Paul's.
Yeah, I was doing some research. I'm going to do an article on this, but research on what AI has done for the health and medical areas, and I mean it's amazing. I think in probably 5 years we'll be able to subscribe to an AI doctor if you want, and it'll probably have the capability to write prescriptions for us also. But AI is having really a profound impact on the health and medical areas, and I say it's probably going to continue for the next 5 years. Right now, I mean, AI can help diagnose diseases. It can predict outcomes. It can recommend treatments and analyze records and all kinds of things. But it can also improve patient experience. I wrote that one article about AWS Health Scribe that's getting kind of widespread use. And so there's a lot of things it can do, virtual assistants, telemedicine, all kinds of things. And like I said, with Health Scribe, it enhanced the productivity and efficiency of the healthcare provider. So it can also enable discoveries on biomedical research and drug development. And I wrote an article, I think last year, or maybe a little longer than that, what IBM was doing to come up with using generative AI and foundation models to come up with new medicines for superbugs. And so, I mean, it's incredible. Some of the challenges that we're going to be facing when we look into the future is there's going to be a lot of ethical and legal and social issues to work out with medical treatment by an AI. Privacy, of course, is one of them. Bias, all the things that come up. It's going to take scaling up and quite a bit of scaling up for this to impact the healthcare industry. There's going to be a lot of barriers to overcome. Right now we've got data quality issues and hallucinations and all kinds of things. So, I
have to ask Paul, why has it taken this long to get here? Watson was supposed to do this a decade ago, I think.
Yeah. Well, simple answer is we didn't have generative AI. That has, totally changed everything, and it's done it really fast. We've never had anything have such a major impact in such a short time, technology-wise, until generative AI came out. So,
yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And the other thing is Watson was based on analytics, did not use hardware acceleration as well. It was the best idea, just too early out there. Not to be confused with the much improved first time to market Watson X here. And, Paul, I'm glad you brought this up because the way that I look at this is it's really what will be impacted by generative AI, right? Yeah. And I look at this broadly as the stuff that wasn't impacted by .com in the 90s and Web 2.0 in the 2000s. So .com era transformed businesses that, like travel agents, stockbrokers, brick and mortar electronic stores, right? Yeah. And then Web 2.0 was about changing in content, right? It was streaming music, movies, and news. So it reshaped all of those industries, right? And so what's going to be Gen AI, right? It's going to be legal. It's going to be healthcare, accounts payable, accounts receivable, call centers, those sea of cubes, right? And not that generative AI isn't going to impact all the but this is where you're going to see the big differences, and that this first in, where I think 2024 is, it's going to be a productivity play. It's either getting more work done by the same workers or getting the same work done by less workers. That's what I'm seeing. And it's what companies are willing to pay for. And then I think on the healthcare side, I mean, literally the data that's available, and a doctor a real doctor, there's no way they can have the capability to be recent with every journal, every JAMA article, every process or every procedure that's been done at that hospital. Should it at a minimum be run by a generative AI doctor chatbot? If nothing else, for the doctor to go in and see if it's anything different from what they might think, and the ability to fine tune this data and how good the data is based on a decade of outcomes inside of a procedure, inside of a inside of a hospital, just seems like, I hope this is not one of these, it's such a no brainer, but the liability is too high. And then you can imagine applying this to places that don't have good healthcare, or healthcare, people can't afford it, right? I mean, when something goes, like what's the first thing that happens when maybe we're not feeling good? We do a Google search and we get sent to WebMD, or we get sent to the Cleveland Clinic, right? And they're probably, if they're smart, which I question, are they going to be the first movers on that, or is a startup going to come along that's going to be, right? WebMD was a startup during the .com era, right? Yeah. And look what it did, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's just kind of my ruminations on this topic.
Yeah, we're on the path now. Google's MedPalm model was the first model to get a passing score on the U.S. medical license exam. They've got MedPalm 2 now, and it improved it by like 20%, and it had an expert level accuracy of like 86%, I believe. And plus these models, I mean, the MD can have a conversation with the model, asking questions about complex medical conditions and that type of thing. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like 5 years is gonna be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Give the homeless people an iPhone with a doctor built into it and say go cure you.
Just something for people who don't have that. Disadvantaged communities, places, sometimes we don't talk about this. Even places like China, 50% of Chinese can't read or write, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's on the Western portion, not the industrialized portion. India's the same way. Yeah. And just imagining what this could do for folks. So, hey guys, we made it through 2023 and through our first episode. It's hard to believe we're only 16 episodes, but I'd like to keep this, keep the pace and just do it every other week. And if one of y'all isn't here or I'm not here, we just trudge forward and do this.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, sir.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, family, your dog, anybody with an IP address to have them tune in. We stream on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Give all compliments to me on X. Give all things you don't like to the rest of the team on X. We are very much on that platform of freedom. Way too much. So anyways, peace out, everybody.